Failure is your teacher, not your undertaker. Today I'm joined by John Cottrell in part 3 of his 10 rules of life. John, what do you mean by failure is your teacher, not your undertaker? Talk to me.
So a lot of people think that they mustn't fail, or that they will deny having failed, they'll make excuses having failed, or they want to blame somebody else.
So in the previous video, we were talking about accountability.
Yeah.
Do you think
Go on.
the failure is basically they don't want to open up because that might create failure and that's awful? Is that what we're saying?
Someone would think that they're no good. Yeah. So if I failed, I might get rejected. Right? So that's the basic game humans play.
And that's the thing about being in the pecking order and being kicked out of the tribe, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So in a work environment, if I get something wrong, I'll be fired, right? And often employers are shocked at how fearful employees are, and they tend to forget, well, you let so-and-so go last year, you let so-and-so go the year before that. Is it my turn to be let go this year?
It's interesting that an awful lot of people watching this are letting agents,
Yeah.
and they are on the DISC profile system a C, which means they're conscientious, detail-orientated, reserved, yet their biggest fear is criticism.
Yes. Yeah, so the C is, as you say, very detail-oriented, but their main emotion is fear, so they tend to be more anxious when they don't need to be. So that's a tendency, first of all, cultivate the awareness. And then when you are feeling anxious, ask yourself why. If you're a C, you're going to make some notes, get some detail. So what is causing the anxiety? And is there actually, when you look at it and look back on it maybe into the past and say, well, did I need to be anxious about that? Probably not. So you have to understand, where was that original trigger that caused you to feel that way?
So you said a teacher. So how can failure become our teacher?
Yeah, great question. So you've heard the expression every day is a school day. So if we treat something as a learning experience, then it's not really a failure. So let's imagine I've gone out on an appraisal for somebody who wants to put their house on the lettings market. They want to let a room out or let a property out, and I don't get that business.
A lot of agents will beat themselves up.
Yeah.
They'll see it as a failure. They've lost it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big, awful thing on this industry, that their fear of losing means that they're overvaluing and selling their soul out on cheap fees.
And that's like an epidemic. If I go and put save some properties on Rightmove, and I go back to them 2 months later, the number that have been withdrawn from the market is shocking.
47% of properties last year didn't get sold.
Right. There you go. Speaking exactly, right? So we're overvaluing because we're scared of not getting the business. We then don't sell it, so we don't make any money anyway. It's just an illusion.
But at least they liked me and they put a property on the market.
Yeah, but it's not relevant,
because they're tickling their ego.
Yeah.
Coming back to ego.
Yes.
Talking of ego, so is this fear of failure again coming back from the ego then?
Yes. Yes, it is. So the antidote, and this is really important, is to treat it as a learning opportunity. So you've gone out to see this prospective client. You, of course, got permission to record the meeting. You don't get it. Then you go back and you listen to the recording. And of course, you've got your process of your, what is the perfect market appraisal or the perfect lettings and what would it, yeah? Of course, you've got that. And if you haven't got it, you need to get one. Yeah, right. Then I assess myself against my process. And this is one of the other things that's really important. You will never defeat fear in your organization if you're pointing the finger at your employees and you're not pointing the finger at the process. So you've got to be tough on the process and be kind to the people.
Isn't it interesting that hardly any area manager or anyone who employs a valuer or a lister will go out on a valuation with their lister?
Ooh.
It is so rare.
Because they're too busy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that busyness is preventing the learning opportunity. So many organizations that I've come across, there'll be one key boy or girl who's really got it, but nobody else has. But how do you transfer from your star player to your, how do you level up? You
Indeed.
can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I talked to a number of estate agency bosses with like multiple offices, and one agent is getting like 2%, and some others are getting
Yeah.
1, and then you swap them over, and that one goes from 2 to 1, and that one goes from 1 to 2, and it's all up here, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's like what you're prepared to accept is what you end up getting.
so it comes back to what you were saying before. You have to be accountable to yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit like if a plane crashes, no one blames anyone in the airline industry. It's what caused this,
Yes.
and what do we need to do differently. And if you
Yeah.
lose a valuation, not I lost it, is
Yeah.
what did I do? What caused it to
Yeah.
me losing
This is Matthew Syed's black box thinking for those listeners who want to go and get the book. And he talks about the difference between surgeons and pilots and their responses to problems. Yeah. So the big difference with well, let's ask you, what's the difference between a surgeon having a problem and a pilot having a problem?
Well, I mean, let's work on the assumption that both die.
Why would the doctor die?
No, not the doctor died, but the patient.
Okay, the patient dies, or in the aeroplane who dies?
Everyone dies.
Everyone dies. So this is the problem. The pilot will die if he makes a problem, the surgeon won't.
Yeah.
In every medical negligence case, what do you hear? What's some of the common themes? They try and brush it under the carpet and say, oh, it's unforeseen circumstances. Not, the nurse saw that the surgeon didn't wash his hands, but because the surgeon is a sir, they didn't speak up and tell him that he's got dirt under his fingernails. The patient then got infected and died. I mean, we're very good in the NHS actually at doing that, so that don't want to get people alarmed. But in many countries, that's not the case. But a pilot is able to report a problem in confidence without fear of the blame and everything else, because everybody will die, pilot included. And what's interesting in the UK, we've taken an air accident investigation branch guy and put him into the NHS to try and set up the same culture. So we learn from our mistakes. We don't end up trying to cover them up and pretend they didn't happen.
So if someone's listening to this saying, I need to take responsibility, obviously they need to do some actions. And
Yes.
your opinion is this: record the valuation, listen back to it,
Yeah.
and then work out if you both winners and losing,
Yeah.
and work out what you did differently,
Yeah.
and learn from it.
Yeah.
Action.
I wouldn't even classify it as winning and losing. I really want to focus on the learning. That's the most important thing. If I'm getting better, I'm learning. But to do that, sorry, Chris, I need a framework. I need a process.
So focus on the process,
Yeah.
not necessarily the outcome. Almost like a lawyer, that is, if they don't, when they say they don't care about whether they win or lose the case, it's, did I do the process correctly?
Yes, that's the point. Because if it's repeatable, then anyone can do it. If it's not repeatable, only your star player can do it.
And therefore, if by seeing that, and it's a process driven, that's going to hurt people's ego.
Yes, potentially.
Keeps coming back to his bloody ego, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That actually they're not as good as that. Anyone can be a valuer if they follow a great process.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, but
and who's the star player in most agencies?
The valuer.
Well, and who is the what relative to the business? The owner, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all about them.
Yeah. So their strength is the business's weakness. Most people haven't thought that through.
Because it's all about them.
Yes. If you can suspend your ego, find people who are better than yourself at their jobs, you'd be amazed how many people are really good at what they do. They don't want what they perceive as the hassle of owning the business. Well, that's great. Come and work with me.
In part 4, let's talk about how people can learn how to do this.
Okay.